It's the Rhino for Survival Skills 101. You know, usually when I start out these segments, I'll tell a joke. But today's subject matter, it ain't too damn funny. It's the George Zimmerman Trayvon Martin shooting case. You know, the prosecution has just rested its case and the defense is about to take over, and I thought this was a good time to do a video on it. Why do a video on it? Because I think I'm uniquely qualified to talk about it. In fact, I would say that I would be an expert witness in this case. Why? Because I have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is a ground fighting martial art. I also have 2 other black belts in stand-up martial arts. I was a former sheriff's deputy. I'm a firearms instructor, and I teach at our local police academy, having pioneered the ground control program for them. So, you know, I think I know a thing or two about what's going on in this case. Now, I followed this case from the beginning to where it is right now. I haven't missed a minute of it. I've DVR'd it. I come home and I watch it every night because I'm looking to see what the prosecution's case is, and I would like to share with you my thoughts on the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman case. You know, when this case first came out, there was a lot of racial tension going on about it. The press was having a field day saying this was a white guy killing a black guy, until they found out that he was a Hispanic guy with just happened to have the last name of Zimmerman. So now I find out in the case that this is not about race, which is fantastic because I want to take race out of this altogether. I don't really care about the black and white aspect of it. However, I want to say that I feel very sorry for the family of Trayvon Martin. I feel very sorry for Trayvon himself. I think this was a scared kid. Now, I'll go into a little bit more detail about this, but this is pretty much a tragedy all the way around, and I want to keep race out of it. Also, in the case, they took out the past of both of these people. So the past of Trayvon Martin and the past of George Zimmerman. So we'll just assume that these are 2 very good people who have never done anything wrong in their entire life, and this just happened. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail about the legalities of this and what I think really happened putting yourself into the shoes of these 2 people. Okay, it's a dark, wet, rainy night in Florida. George Zimmerman is going to the grocery store. He's driving his truck. He sees a guy walking down the street wearing a dark hoodie over his head. Can't figure out why this guy is walking so slow, looking around. Guy keeps walking. He decides that he's going to call the cops. He calls the cops, then he starts following in his vehicle and tries to find an address for the police. He gets out of his truck, but before he gets out of his truck, he sees that the person walking with the hoodie is looking at him. The person in the hoodie walks around his truck one time. That's what happened. That's what they said in court. And he starts walking on. George Zimmerman, talking to the police, is looking for an address. He can't find it. He starts walking on after that guy. Can't find the guy. Walks up a little ways. Decides, okay, I can't find him. I'm going to turn around. He starts coming back. When all of a sudden he turns around and there's the guy in the hoodie asking him, do you have a problem? George Zimmerman says, no, I don't have a problem, and that's where a fight breaks out right then and there. So in a nutshell, that's the gist of what happened. You know, I've left out a few details, but you kind of get the idea. Put yourself in both of these guys' shoes. Let's put ourselves in Trayvon Martin's shoes just for a second. He's a kid, went to the store, coming back. He knows nothing about the law. He's just walking on home. Sees this guy in a truck staring at him. He keeps walking. Probably a little scared, sees this guy following him, doesn't know what's up, decides to take some action. Put yourself in George Zimmerman's case. He sees a bad guy that he thinks is a bad guy, and he sees them walking. He calls the police. He's done this numerous times, calls the police in his capacity as a neighborhood watch captain, I guess, if you will. Sees another one, decides to call. He calls the non-emergency number, is talking to him, and he starts trying to find out where this guy is going. All of a sudden, a guy comes out of nowhere in the dark, and a fight ensues. That's pretty much, you know, you put yourself in those guys' place, especially when it's dark and somebody comes out of the shadows at you, in the case of George Zimmerman, or somebody's following you. So I kind of look at this as, man, this is something that was very unfortunate, and I don't think that either one of them knew what to make out of the whole thing. However, one of the problems with this case, and one thing that I could never understand why it went to court, and I don't care if you're black or white, is there's no witnesses to see how this started. All we have is one dead kid and a guy who's telling us what happened. So there's nobody, there's no witnesses there to corroborate any of this. All right, so understand this. In politics, the truth doesn't really matter unless it gives you something. It's a means to an end. In the law, it doesn't really matter what you know, it's what you can prove in court. And in this case, the state of Florida doesn't have much of a case. Why? Because nobody saw anything. Now, here's what we do know. We do know that two people got into a fight. George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin. We know that George Zimmerman had a broken nose, cuts on the back of his head, and a wet jacket. We know that Trayvon Martin was shot with a handgun. That's about it. And then we hear people saying, oh, we heard screaming, and then they look out their window and they see the tail end of this and nobody gets any video and no one sees anything. This is the tough part in the case for the state of Florida, is that there's nobody there to say anything of how it began. Let's look at what's legal and what's not legal. All right, let's not look at what's right and wrong, all right, or what you think they should have done. Because if George Zimmerman hadn't have followed Trayvon Martin, this probably wouldn't have happened. If Trayvon Martin hadn't have come back when he could have walked on home, this probably wouldn't happen. So this isn't going to help the case at all. But we're going to talk about what's legal and what's not legal, all right? First of all, if you're driving in your truck and you see a guy who's acting suspicious, it is not illegal to walk up to them and say, hey, what are you doing, dude? Now, in Trayvon Martin's case, it is not illegal to walk down the street, and it is not illegal to look suspicious. It's not illegal to look at houses. You can do that. It's no big deal. And it's no big deal to see somebody and think suspiciously of them, all right? So understand when we say, or when people say, oh, if he hadn't done this, this wouldn't have happened, like that's going to lead to blame. 911 tells you, no, you shouldn't follow them, but you do it anyway. Again, they don't have any legal standing over there. You can do whatever you want in that situation. So, and you're following this guy to see where he goes. Following somebody is not illegal. So we can't go and create guilt out of something that's not illegal in that situation. So where is the crime happening? The crime happens when two people start to fight. So if somebody starts a fight and throws a punch, that's where the illegality is in this case. And in this case, all we have is George Zimmerman's word for it, because Trayvon Martin is not there to defend himself. George Zimmerman has a broken nose. We can infer by that he's the one who got punched. Trayvon Martin's face doesn't have any bruising or punches on it or shows any signs of being punched whatsoever. So, looking at the evidence on hand, you can see that Trayvon Martin probably was the one who threw the first punch. Why? Because George Zimmerman said so, and there's no other evidence that's going to overrule that. So, quite frankly, someone comes out of the dark, says, you have a problem, homie, and punches you in the face. That is not a case of mutual combat. Mutual combat is where I look at you, you look at me, and we want to fight. Yeah, I want to fight, and we go and we duke it out. That's mutual combat. This is a self-defense situation. Somebody comes out of the dark and punches you in the face, then you can defend yourself. The question being now, is the use of force that he used too much for what the situation called for? All right, so in what situation can you use a firearm to defend yourself in just this certain circumstance? Well, you know what? Again, I tell you what, darkness plays a huge role in this because it could scare the heck out of you. And what you need to be able to use more force in a simple fist-to-fist altercation is that you need to have the feeling that your life is in danger of death or great bodily harm. It's a feeling that you have, and you need to be able to articulate why you felt that way. In this case, someone comes out of the dark, speaking for George Zimmerman, somebody comes out of the dark, asks if they have a problem, and punches him in the face, and then however this fight ends up, George Zimmerman ends up being mounted on top of by Trayvon Martin, being punched in the face. We're going to demo this position here in just a minute so you can see how dangerous this position can be from an expert's opinion. To top it all off, Trayvon Martin, in testimony, was hitting George Zimmerman's head into the concrete sidewalk. So George Zimmerman was His head was on the sidewalk and his body was on the grass, and his head, in the words of George Zimmerman, were being smashed into the concrete. A person can articulate then that the smashing of the concrete put them in fear for great bodily harm or death. Now, we could take George Zimmerman out and put your mom there, or your sister, or your husband, wife, whoever, and you can look and go, wow, well, in that case, yeah, I can see how it would be. Well, you know what? We take them back out and put George Zimmerman, he still felt that he didn't know who this person was and he's being beaten on. That's the starting point for that feeling of whether their life is in danger or not. To top this all off, George Zimmerman had a firearm on him. Now, having a firearm on you in the state of Florida with the right permit concealed is not against the law. So bringing a gun into this situation is not illegal, and there's no basis for guilt in any of that. However, when you're in a fight where you're on the ground, typically what happens is that gun could fall out or it could be shown. And you know what? If the person attacking you sees your gun, makes a lunging movement for your gun, or grabs onto your gun, again, you can infer that by him trying to grab your weapon, like we do as police officers, that your life is in danger of great bodily harm or death, and you can use the use of force, you can take it up to lethal in this case. George Zimmerman, being the only one there, no video, no nothing, said that Trayvon Martin had grabbed for his gun, and so he pulled his weapon and fired one shot, hitting Trayvon Martin in the chest, in the heart area. And supposedly Trayvon could have lived up to 10 minutes, but the wound was fatal and he was going to die. All right, real quick, we're going to demonstrate, make it realistic what happened with Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman. We've got some concrete here. We're going to talk about them out. Before I begin, this is my son, the bear. He's going to help me demo this, and he's going to be the guy on top. Before that, though, I put a little pillow in here because George Zimmerman was a pretty big guy at the time. Bear's a pretty big guy, so I'm trying to simulate the guy had a bigger stomach just to help this out. Now, real quick, Bear's going to lay down on his back. I want to tell you something about the mount here. The mount, I can punch him, but he's going to have a tough time punching me, the guy on the bottom. Alright? Now if we were to switch, if he were to get on top of me, and he's on top of me right here, he can punch me, but I can't punch him. And the reason is he has his entire body here to be as a length. I can only go this far. I've got my entire arm right here to length. I can only pull back this far. How far can you pull back, Bear?
As far
way
as I want.
big, all right? So, and now my head is also on the concrete right here. I've, as I said, I put this pillow right here to kind of simulate being a little bit bigger. I also have my plastic gun that I'm using, my rubber gun, I should say, and I'm going to be using that as a weapon. It's going to be in my waistband, and it's covered by this. One thing I want you to know, I can't get my gun if his knees are right here. So if we're here and he's punching me, and I'm bucking up, all right, I'm not going to be able to get my gun. So George Zimmerman said he scooted down, and we'll talk about this here in just a second, but he was getting his head pounded, and he scooted down. If that happens, what's going to look? I scoot down, a leg typically is going to come up as I back into him. Why? Because he's being pushed, and this will push a leg up. Now it might not be too much, but it's going to be just enough right here to get my gun. Trayvon Martin is going to have to put up this leg. If he puts up the other leg, George Zimmerman can still get the gun out, and that gun's going to come out, but the problem is it's going to be all in here, and it's not going to be the right angle, because they said the angle came in at this direction into his heart. So it's going to have to be this leg that came up. So I'm putting this back in, and I scooted down, and that leg came up. His jacket came up. Look at how Trayvon would be looking right here. See, you can't hardly tell if he's looking at the gun or what. That gun comes out, and look, there's the trajectory of the firearm. Now the next thing I want to talk about is my head is up on the concrete right here, and I'm going to tell you what, that hurts just doing that. And you could just get your head pounded in like this, and then
Trayvon Martin is putting his face or his hand over the guy's face like this, and then he can still punch and slam the head into this. Is a very bad deal right here, and this hurts pretty bad. I can see you get your bell rung a couple times how this could go wrong. So just to sum this up, could this happen? You bet. This is not out of the realm of possibility. However, I just don't believe that Trayvon Martin is going to be keeping two knees on the ground like this, especially when George Zimmerman at that time was a bigger dude. So he will probably have, I would say, put a leg up, and with this angle that they were talking about, it would probably have to be this leg, because I'm skeptical that it's the other leg. Trayvon might be a lefty, and I'm not sure. But his stomach's going to be right here. He's going to be off. Even if this were down just a little bit, that way this gun would be right here, and it would come out, and it would have the trajectory that he would need. It wouldn't happen like this. Just not going to go, because you can't get your gun from out there. This is going to be difficult, and plus you're getting beat up and hit. I just disagree on that. So that leg's probably going to come up.
So the police show up. They look at the evidence, take everything in the totality of it, and they determine that this was a self-defense situation, that George Zimmerman felt in fear for his life and shot Trayvon Martin, and it was a legal shooting. It was only after a couple weeks, a month or so, when the outcry in the media got so big that they finally decided to prosecute George Zimmerman for second-degree murder, of all things. And take him to court for this. Now, I got to tell you, in my opinion, the prosecutors don't have much evidence. I watched this overall, and I didn't see very much to go on as far as convicting him. Plus, George Zimmerman has the law on his side. He has Florida's stand your ground law. Stand your ground law states that you don't have to run away when you're in a potentially deadly situation. You can literally stand your ground and defend yourself. So the law is on George Zimmerman's side. So he's not even breaking the law after the police determined that it was a self-defense situation. Well, anyway, a prosecutor decided to take him to court, and that's the tough part about this whole thing for George Zimmerman, is that even though you think you're in the right, or you think you're doing the right thing, you could still go to court anyway. And overall, we're at the halfway point of this, and personally, I don't think that the prosecutors have made their case. Okay, so what does this mean to you if you carry a firearm? Well, I hope it brings it home to you that a firearm does not solve all of your problems. It's not a superhuman tool that will help you take care of everything. In fact, it's only good for one thing. When your life is in danger of great bodily harm or death, can you use your firearm? Don't go ground fighting with your firearm. Don't go fighting and punching people when you have a firearm. And just because you have it, there's a great responsibility in protecting it, keeping yourself safe, and keeping others safe. So remember this: if you have a firearm and you're carrying it on you, make sure that you're responsible with it. Just remember that this George Zimmerman case has a lot to do with you personally, keeping yourself safe in a self-defense situation. You get into a shooting, you better hope that never happens. But you know what? You could end up on national television spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to defend yourself, trying to stay out of prison, and you might not ever have a job again because your face is so well known. So you better hope that you never have to use a firearm in a self-defense situation, because it could be something bad. Okay, there you go. It's a bit long-winded, but this is a very complicated case, and I tried to make it as simple as I possibly could. Thanks for listening to my opinion. If you're going to carry a firearm, absolutely, positively don't use it unless you absolutely feel your life is in danger of great bodily harm or death. If you like what we're doing, subscribe to our channel. I'm the Rhino for Survival Skills 101. Are you prepared to look forward